You haven't done a lot of it in your life.
Ice
I wouldn't
fishing?
think, Corzo.
No. I think I did it once.
And it was
I
an
thought,
excuse to drink in the daytime.
yeah,
basically.
you know, and I don't need an excuse to drink in the daytime. I can do it at home with a big screen TV and be warm.
Yes.
I'm not ashamed to say that.
Brooke, have you done any ice fishing?
I have done some ice fishing in the city here, not up in
never
Canada.
never out in Canada.
I think it was Calhoun.
Not much of a ice fisherman myself. My old man loved it. Even on Fulda Lake, he'd have a little ice house, and he loved it. Back in the days when they could spear him, you know, you'd have the deal, and then he'd give him a big whack, and he'd sit out there in the fish house. He'd do it for hours. I don't know how the hell you ever do it. But the story on the poor guy, Rob Scott, the 65-year-old guy from Crane Lake, we talked about him a little yesterday. He was fishing on the Ontario border. He lives, Crane Lake, right up there at the top of the state. And what was February 8th, morning of February 8th, he starts fishing, and
it was like 30 below that.
Yeah. He catches himself and I believe outside. They don't have fish houses up there. I think you just fish right on the water.
It was really cold that day. That was that big pourable stretch that we've had many of, but early February.
But we got a picture of Rob, and he looks like a tough old outdoorsman from the North Woods. So he gets himself a 4-pound laker, as they call a lake trout, and he was sitting in the sun, and he knew in Canada you can only catch one, but you can keep fishing. And, in case you're trying to catch a whitefish or a northern or something like that, you can keep fishing. In Minnesota, the limit is 2. In Ontario, the limit is 1. He's about 100 feet into Canada. And he knew it. He knew it was in Canada, but he also knew his nephew and another guy were going to come fishing. So he said, well, I'll keep fishing, and if they show up and I catch another one, I'll give them my 4-pounder.
And what do you just throw it on the ice?
The
and it's because it's
4-pounder,
cold and it just
on
laid.
the ice, and
so it's dead.
And you would have to, if you catch them in the winter, from what I understand, if they're really stressed, a 4-pounder you could if you put it right back in immediately, it might survive. But so now he keeps fishing, and then a couple of guys run up on snowmobiles, and they're basically the Ontario version of DNR, game wardens, we used to call them, game and fish wardens. And they check him and talk to him, and they see the trout laying there, and he's 20 minutes later, the guys disappear, and he keeps fishing, and all of a sudden, he's just catching it off a line, a little tip-up line. He gets a pretty good strike, and it turns out to be a 52-pound, 3-ounce lake trout.
52 pounds?
52
and
pounds.
He gets it?
There's the picture.
I got to see that.
There's the picture. 52 pounds, 3 ounces.
Woo. Yeah, he does look like he's
3 ouncer. 23 pounds over the world record for a lake trout.
Pounds.
23 pounds larger than the world record for being caught off a tip line, according to Dennis
He's the
Anderson's
Wayne Gretzky of fishing.
Yes, 52 pounds. And he doesn't tell anybody in the media about this, but guys in Ely tell other guys in Ely, and Dennis Anderson's from Ely, and somebody from Ely says, hey, somebody caught a fish up here, a lake trout up here the size of a hippopotamus. So Dennis gets in contact with the guy, and the guy texts him a photo and writes a story on it of this big honking fish. And unfortunately, the 2 Ontario game wardens see it and say, hey,
We saw
that's the guy that had the 4-pounder on the ice. And even though he'd given the other one to his nephew, the 4-pounder, before he ever caught the 52-pounder, no party fishing is allowed in Ontario. In other words, you have to catch your own fish. In Minnesota, if the limit for walleyes is 3, and you and I are fishing together, and
one of us could catch 6.
I catch 5, and you catch 1. That's fine. In Ontario, there's no party.
When
fishing.
I catch my one, if you haven't caught one yet, I'm supposed to stop fishing.
Yes,
or if I catch one, throw it back.
Yes.
Because if I'm looking for another fish.
Yes.
Got it.
But unfortunately, it took him an hour to catch this fish.
How big was his hole to get it out of
That's what he said. He didn't even know if he could get the fish. And he said the fish was obviously not going to survive after this hour-long battle, this 52-pounder. And if he would have thrown it in the back of the hole, it would have died almost instantly, because in the winter they're not as durable as they are the rest of the time.
How big is it anyway?
So he keeps it. And now the Minnesota DNR is sent to confiscate the fish, and it's going back to Canada. Dead. But the Ontario, instead of fining the guy $1,000 and saying keep the fish and put it in, have a taxidermist do it, he's got to give the fish back. So
Is he still going to have the record?
Or
is this like Reggie Bush?
No,
I mean,
this is
he
no
broke
record.
the rules. The record,
Yeah, no,
even though he
yes.
factually caught. Now he was over his limit.
Yes,
I'm a
Ontario.
firm, but this is not like Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush was not. I think it should still count as the record. That's just my view. He caught the fish.
It was actually weighed on a hand scale.
Oh, so that wouldn't.
So you'd have to take it in.
Right.
But this guy, there's a picture of this fish.
So he's not going to
That
get
is a-
fined, but he has to
Well,
send the fish back.
he doesn't know what his legal implication. If Ontario, there's a very good chance that Ontario will not let him fish in Canada anymore, even though
He's been banned.
he's on the lake.
Wow.
That Lake LaCroix where he caught it is splits. Half
Right.
of it's in Canada and half of it's in the U.S. But
So is that in the
amazing story.
boundary waters, or is that not in the
Yeah,
boundary
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is in the boundary waters. And
I was telling these guys during GL, my brother is a huge fisherman. We were up there, and he says, we can't fish in Canada, but the wind was coming, and we were doing it. We were fishing in Canada.
you were drifting over.
Yeah, we were over. Yeah, I couldn't tell. I didn't know. All the lakes look the same to me.
How the hell do you know?
Yeah, they don't paint it on the
That's-
ice up there. There's no
no,
line.
There's a center line.
Do they have a tree over there a mile? I mean, these are big lakes. These
Yes.
aren't lakes where these are lakes where all you can see is lake. You can see trees are a little speck.
There was one area where they actually had a Canadian flag and a U.S.
Okay.
flag, and on either side, and you knew when, and it was really pretty cool. And we were just, and it was like a much smaller little transition area that was pretty cool. But
this
when you
is
get on the open lake,
This
pretty
might
hard to
not be
tell.
the kind of client you'd like to have. He said, if you're trying to get him up, I have friends who are lawyers who say I shouldn't have said anything to the officers and all that. He said, that's not me. I told them the way it was, that I had the
Yeah.
4-pounder and then I had the 50. The guy who's a straight shooter.
The straight shooter?
Told him the truth when the DNR came to confiscate the fish. He said, yeah, I caught 2.
There's nothing wrong with being a straight
No,
shooter.
there's nothing wrong with it. And he's got a fish story to tell. I hope they let him fish in Canada.
Yeah, they
but,
should not let him fish in Canada.
Yeah. So, he knew he was in Canada, too. He knew he was by about 100 feet.
So why was he? I guess he
100
didn't
feet.
care. He just that was where he felt he needed to fish.
I don't know if he said he was so excited and so pumped up that he just thought, well, yeah, I can give the 4-pounder to the fish is going to die anyway, and I can give the
And his
4-pounder.
buddy did show up. Did his buddy?
nephew showed up and
Yep.
he gave him the 4-pounder, or the nephew might have already been there.
But because the DNR saw the fish was
because the Ontario people saw it.
not the DNR, the
If
Ontario.
he'd been
Canada.
100 feet away, he probably wouldn't have caught the fish there. But
So it's February 8th, it's 30 below, and the game wardens are up patrolling.
Ontario, yeah, boy.
Wow. How many people were up there ice fishing on that day?
I don't know.
I guess if 30 below bothers you, you're not an ice fisherman in that part of the world.
You don't live there.
No,
For one,
they don't
you
live
don't retire to Crane Lake so you can be there in the winter, that's for sure. We'll be back. This is Sports Talk.